Hello, welcome. My name is Damon Brown of DamonBrown.net. My main thing is helping you as a side hustler, a solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. We're gonna do things a little bit differently today since I'm gonna be doing a little bit of cutting and pasting. So it might go a little bit slower today. You're watching the Bring Your Worth show. I come to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. Love connecting with y'all. If you want to subscribe, you can subscribe for free. Let me go and get you a subscription thing over here. And we're approaching, we passed 100 episodes, which we need a round of applause for that. I ended up starting this show in late December. It is now almost July. So happy to show up for y'all regularly. It was a daily show, and then I came to my senses. And with the feedback, I knew it was pretty intense to do it daily. So now it's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's live every Wednesday, getting comments from y'all, discussions, and so forth. And it is recorded every Monday and Friday, where you'll have a little capsule. That's the right word? I think so. A capsule of a show. So you'll learn a little bit more about how to make your way in the world. I'm the author of the new book, Build From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World. We will learn more and have an update on this book. It just came out on January 28th. Thank you for all the love and support, and I appreciate it. So today we're going to talk about how to get attention from the press. My background is journalism. I have 2 degrees in journalism, master's in magazine publishing. I'm a big journalism nerd. Again, I got a master's in magazine publishing, so something that's not supported as much today. So it's not just because of my age, because I'm not a spring chicken, but also because of how intense I am about understanding the press, connecting with the press, being part of the press. And one of the biggest questions that I get is, how do I get more press for my stuff? I have upcoming videos going to talk about that. I think it's going to go live on Friday. Be sure and subscribe, again, for free, and you can make sure that you don't miss that. So I go deeper into this. But there's a whole lineage of books, and it's a variety of books that I'm going to recommend today that will give you more insight into getting attention for your work. The short version is the best way to get attention for your work is to do notable work. It sounds contradictory. It might even sound a little trite, depending on where you're at in your career, but bear with me. If you're creating something that's noteworthy, then that person you're trying to impact, and it's just one person, that person you're trying to impact is going to tell another person. And then they're going to tell another person. Whether they love it or hate it, they're going to talk about it, right? When I had my startup, Cuddler, it connected people for hugs. It was about 8 years ago during the era of Tinder and Grindr when they were at their peak. We ended up being the #1 app in several countries, including America, #1 app in the world, essentially. We had 250,000 users. We ended up selling it about a year after we started. We were derided so hard. And the name of the app is Cuddler, Cuddlr. You can do a Google search for it. I talk about it also in Build From Now and in my previous books, The Ultimate Bite-Sized Entrepreneur and Bring Your Worth, which you can see behind my big head. And that journey was really intense, but it also taught me that whether people love or hate your stuff, if they're talking about it and if it impacts them in some way, then they're going to share with other people. I love this thing. I hate this thing. Why does this thing exist? That's still a discussion. We have a rule in journalism. If something happens once, then it doesn't mean anything. If it happens twice, that means it's a coincidence. If it happens 3 times, then it's a trend. We only write about trends. So whatever you're trying to do as a business person, make something that's noteworthy. Frankly, if you're not doing anything that's noteworthy as a business person, I don't know if it's worth the risk to do your startup, to bootstrap your thing, to go on this really intense journey of being an entrepreneur if you're not doing anything that's going to impact the world. Again, subtitle of the new book, Nourish the World. If you're not nourishing the world, to nourish something means to give it something that it didn't have before. So not everybody's going to like your stuff. And if you feel as though that you need press to take off with what you're doing, then there might be something about what you're doing that needs tweaking. You really want the press to come to you. You don't want to be paid. You don't want to pay to be on a list somewhere. As someone, a fellow entrepreneur was talking about it on Instagram about a week ago. Shout out to them. You don't want to be paid. You don't want to pay people to be on a list. You want to be paid to be on a list, right? You want sales or services or whatever, resources that come from you being talked about in the press. You shouldn't be paying the press to talk about you. That's not how it works. for my best-selling books. I've had 3, including The Ultimate Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, that one that came out 5 years ago. Thanks to y'all who bought it. To my app Cuddler, to the other stuff that I've done. I never paid the press. I never hunted them down. I did things that were noteworthy enough, not shenanigans, but actually created things that were noteworthy enough to be covered in the press. That is the secret. I get into it more again in the video that I've coming out this Friday. I believe it's about how to handle press. Again, you can subscribe. It'll be out Friday at 11:30 a.m. Vegas time. All right, so let's get to the suggestions. Oh, and I need to give a special shout out to the Parentpreneur Foundation. And again, I'm slow with the links today, so forgive me. It should pop up there in a second. The Parentpreneur Foundation, thanks to y'all. It's a group, nonprofit, that's killing it right now. I think they've grown in size, like, I think they 4x'd or something since I joined a year ago. And it is led with the intention of helping Black entrepreneurs who are parents leave a legacy for their children. I mean, if you know any of my work, you know it hits that. That's why I joined the network as soon as it started. They actually gave me a grant to help coach people within the community. If y'all know me, this is close to my heart. So shout out to them. Be sure and join. It's Parentpreneur Foundation. If that fits your profile, if you need support, and we all do need support as an African-American entrepreneur that also has kids. I have 2 little kids. They drive me nuts, but they're also the reason for me doing everything. And it's so important to know your reason for doing everything. Anyway, I got a wonderful grant from them over Father's Day. It really made my week. So thanks to them. Go check it out. Tell them that I sent you. All right, so I'm going to recommend a few books that will give you some insight as far as how you want to present yourself to the press. The first one is actually a very personal one of mine. It is Built From Now, the Deluxe edition. It is so new, I don't have the new copy of it. The new copy is salmon. If you've read the book or if you're familiar with the book, you know why the cover is colored salmon. I'll leave it at that. Shout out to all y'all who get the Easter egg with the new cover. The new version of the book is coming out July 28th. You can pre-order it now. If you're on Amazon, you can get it on Kindle. You can also pre-order it in paperback. You can go to your favorite bookstore. In fact, I have a independent bookstore connection that you have here. That's bookshop.org/shop/Brown Damon. Told you I was going old school today. If you want to pre-order it from your favorite bookstore, be sure and check out my link right there at bookshop.org/shop/Brown Damon. They connect to all the indie bookstores here in Vegas, all the way to Utah, all the way to Jersey from where I'm from. They will hook you up. Of course, if you're looking at this from Amazon Live, shout out to Amazon. You click it through there, get the Kindle version. If you want a signed copy of it, you can come over to my website at damonbrown.net. Come over to damonbrown.net, free shipping, all that good stuff, and you get a signed copy of it. So come through and support this indie publisher that's doing his thing. The new version of Built From Now, it just came out January 28th. So thanks for y'all that bought a copy. The new version of it, which is so exciting to me, the new version includes this. As I said in some social media messages today. I cannot talk today. That's the social media messages today. This is actually part of a series. So it began with Bring Your Worth, which came out 2 years ago. Little proud book, loved it. It was so much fun to write. Really intense to write, but so much fun. 2 years later, I wrote this, which is a follow-up to it. This is Level Up Your Creative Power, Value, and Service to the World. A lot of y'all didn't know these two were connected. Now, I reference it a few times. I reference Bring Your Worth and Built From Now a few times in here. I quote myself, which is always a surreal experience, in here because it's part of a series. A lot of y'all didn't know that. I tried to explain that to you. I mentioned it in the back of the book, but a lot of that was missed. Here's what I did. I took peanut butter and chocolate. Trying to figure out the right analogy. Peanut butter and chocolate. I was going to say jelly. Peanut butter and chocolate and put them together. So the new version, the deluxe edition of Built From Now, actually includes Bring Your Worth. It's just a little bit more expensive. I think the paperback is $5 more. The Kindle version is the same price, and you get both of the books. This gives you some really good context into this. How to know your power, see your abundance, and nourish the world. And I'm really about giving y'all as much value as possible. This ties into press because what are you going to do when you get your press? I've had the humbling experience of being on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, having a top 10 book on Amazon, being on the TED stage 4 times. I know what it's like to get that exposure, which is what we call it in the journalism world, to get that exposure. But that exposure doesn't mean anything if you don't do anything about it. Build From Now, particularly the Deluxe edition, which will be out again July 28th. You can pre-order at damonbrown.net or through the links that I put up during this talk. Build From Now is basically saying you have to create a foundation from where you're at right now. You can't wait till tomorrow. You can't wait till you get more money. You can't wait till the kids are grown or until your parents are in a better place. You have to build right now. Because once that spotlight gets on you, as I dance around in my light here in my office, once that spotlight gets on you, then what are you going to do with it? There's so many people that I coach, and I've coached hundreds of folks, where they say, I want more press. I want attention for my product. Then what? It's like saying you want to be a millionaire. Cool, a lot of us do. I'm cool with being a millionaire. I love that. That sounds good to me. Then what? You're going to buy a house. You're going to take care of your kids' tuition. You're going to pay down some debt. You're going to help save the world. Are you going to invest in somewhere? What are you going to do with it? A lot of us don't know what we're going to do as we get through the door. As I talk about, I'll have a video up later on this week. It's going to be Friday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where I'm talking way more in depth about this. Be sure and subscribe to make sure that you catch this. But I talk about this where we wish and we hope and we fight for these different things, and then we're not sure what we're actually going to do when we get there, right? I want you to strategize enough to know what you're going to do when you get there. Build From Now is a strategy book. It's not wishful thinking. It's not hopefulness. It's not when this happens, nope. It's pure strategy, pure strategy. Read this and get to where you need to go. Again, the Deluxe edition is going to be out July 28th. Look out for the salmon cover. I love saying salmon. I like to emphasize the L. Look for the salmon cover. And remember, the new edition of Build From Now actually has Bring Your Worth in it. And so you'll have a ton of fuel to go ahead and get you going in our post-late and in some places of the world, mid-pandemic world. If you want to get more insight into this and know what you're getting into with Build From Now, go ahead and check out the free excerpt of Build From Now over at the channel. And you can listen to it. It's an audiobook. It's available on audiobook as well. And listen to the original version of it, and you'll get more insight into what's going on in the Deluxe version. But check it there. It's part of the Bring Your Worth channel. All right, so the next book I would recommend if you're looking to get more press is the book Fascinate. I've mentioned the book in the past. I think I mentioned it like maybe a handful of shows ago. So it is a really interesting book. I don't read it all the time, but when I need it, it's there. It's that kind of book. Fascinate's by Sally Hogshead, fellow TED speaker, but on a much bigger level. So, I respect the career that she's built and how popular her TED Talks are. I think she's done 2. One of them is just like off the charts, like top 5% TED Talks ever watched. Be sure and check out Sally Hogshead. Easy to remember that name. Fascinate is her taking, similar to what I do with Build From Now, with your business systems. She's created a system for how you connect with other people. How you get their attention. Like one of my things is at least what I interpreted from her book, one of my things is being able to connect the dots. So I'm good at connecting things. I have a show coming up over the next 2 weeks where I talk about the rapper 2 Chainz, which if you're into hip hop, you're familiar with his name. And I talk about the landmark marketer and teacher, Seth Godin. To me, they have similar stuff in common. On the outset, it's like, well, one's a rapper from Atlanta, the other one's an older Jewish guy that's from upstate New York. What do they have in common? Well, quite a bit. And so in this video that I have, again, on the YouTube channel, you can check out youtube.com/BrownDamon and subscribe for free. I'm going to be talking about, it's going to be on an upcoming video that I just recorded that I'm going to be editing, and it's going to be up over the next week or two. That's one of my things. That's one of the ways that I fascinate people, is that I can take these disparate things and make it make sense. And that helps the world make sense. I help organize the world. As a journalist in the past, which is probably where I learned that, but also as a speaker now and as a coach, again, to many different people. Fascinate is breaking that all down. So I'd say the first half of the book is really about understanding the fascination process. And the second half is really about how fascination applies to you. How does this apply to the press? This applies because how are you going to get attention matters, but how you hold attention matters even more. As Dr. Dre said way back in the day, see, I'm doing it again. There's a random connection. As Dr. Dre said back in the day, it's not hard to get the #1 spot, but how are you going to keep it, right? You can get the attention of a press. You can, I don't know, do skydiving off the Bellagio or the Aria hotels right down the street from me on the Strip here in Vegas. You can do that. You get a bunch of attention for the day. Then what? How are you going to keep that attention? What are you going to do with that attention? How are you going to hold it? Where are you going to direct people to? Even with me today, and I brought up my new version of Build From Now, the Build From Now Deluxe edition, which you can pre-order now at my website at damebrown.net or over at this Amazon link or through your favorite independent bookstore over at bookshop.org/shop/BrownDamon. Before I talked to y'all about it, I made sure that the pre-orders were ready. So I went to the printer, I get stuff organized, all that stuff, before I even mention the book to you. Otherwise, I say, hey, I have a new version of Build From Now coming out. You guys should check it out. And you guys are like, great. And I'm like, okay, check it out. And it's like, well, where do I pre-order? We can't pre-order it yet. Well, I'm leading y'all nowhere. So before you get the attention of the press, and you don't always have control over this. That's why I'm emphasizing this. You can't control when the press is going to write about you. You just can't. Let's just let that go. Again, I've been part of the press for 25 years. You can't control it. Sorry, right? So you can't control when they're going to talk about you. Just like you can't control, my book 5 years ago, The Ultimate Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, y'all made it a bestseller. Did I will it to be a bestseller? Well, no. It was time. Same thing with press. You can't control that. What you can control is preparation, though. And so not pulling the trigger before it should be pulled. Making sure you have a place for people to go. Even me saying, check out my website at damonbrown.net to learn more about me, my coaching practice, and all those things. All those details give you something to do. If the press decided to write about me today, at this moment, there will be some type of what we call as a action step or some type of prompt, something for the audience or the people you serve to do. Fascinate touches on that. Once you get that attention, what are you going to do with that intention? Not intention, but attention, right? If you want more insight into this, I talk about it very briefly in this video, but it's worth adding more context to it. I have a previous show about how to do public speaking today. Fascinate, a lot of it is about public speaking. But what are we doing when we're talking to the press? What are we doing right now as I'm talking to you at my show? What are you doing when you're pitching someone to buy your product or service? You're doing public speaking. Check out this video. Again, all free. Be sure and subscribe and you won't miss a beat. All right, so the next book recommendation would be one that I'm relatively new to, called The Attention Merchants by Tim Wu. Now, I know Tim Wu's work from way back in the day, as far as back in the day, like 20 years ago, when I first started getting really serious about journalism, because he's one of the forefront journalists, even though he's more of a researcher, but one of the forefront writers talking about digital rights. And if you've heard about, now I'm blanking on it, but it was a controversy in the FCC. You can tell it's been a long week. Forgive me. It was a controversy in the FCC, particularly with Ajay, who was the previous head of the FCC, as far as giving freedom to the amount of things that we can put over the internet. Net neutrality. Woo, long day. Net neutrality. he was one of the forerunners talking about that way before it was a hot topic. So Tim knows what he's talking about. He's done the research. This is called the attention merchants, how people are trying to get your attention. If you're going to get the attention of the press, which even that sounds a little clickbaity, if you're going to get the attention of the press, you need to understand how other people are getting your attention, right? Now, he talks about Facebook and Twitter and the usual folks, some of those folks that I'm actually broadcasting on now, so shout out to them. Without them, I wouldn't have as much of a platform. How they're actually, in some cases, in a dark way, manipulating our attention, and in other ways, just trying to make a buck. And other ways, they're connecting us to people with the attention that we're giving. And so there's so much power in that. He talks about that. You got to understand what you're getting into. You're not just, and this is cliche, but it's fact. It's worth emphasizing. When you're saying you want press for your product, you're not just competing against your so-called competitors, right? You're competing with Netflix. You're competing with the latest social media influencer. You're competing with the Kardashians. Facts. You're competing with me. Like, you're competing with everybody. And so you have to understand what attention means. To paraphrase Seth Godin, who I shouted out earlier, first you have to get people's trust, and then you get people's attention. I believe Tim gets into this with his book. Any of Seth Godin's books get into this, and you can check out the channel at youtube.com/BrownDamon. Subscribe. You see a bunch of Seth Godin stuff on there. I actually studied under him with the Kimbo workshop. Shout out to them. So a lot of his philosophies I'm passing on to y'all. You have to build that trust. To build that trust, that means building the community. And building the community means connecting with people before you actually ask them for money. And in fact, attention can be way more valuable than money. In fact, I think it is. Because there's stuff you can do. Where, so I'm going to post this thing right here. There's stuff you can do where you have, there's stuff that you can do that doesn't require money. But there's certain things that you have money for that you can't get done. In other words, there are conferences, there are people, there are things that happened that I was able to do that millionaires couldn't do. And that's the same for you too. You can call it social capital, you can call it networking, you can call it trust. But there's certain ways that you can move. And if you move those certain ways, you actually have more power than some of the richest people in the world. But you have to know what outcome you want to have. Who are you trying to serve, right? Once you get the attention of the whole world, which I've actually had once or twice in my career, it's a rare thing. Once you have that attention, you better know what to do with it. You better be directing them somewhere. You better be taking care of them. You better be serving them. It better not be a waste of their time. I talk about this more in an interview I had with Afrotech. Actually, let me get it better. There we go. An interview I had with Afrotech at the top of the year, again, celebrating the launch of the original Build From Now. The deluxe version is going to be out in a month. Like I said, you can pre-order that at DamonBrown.net. The original version of Build From Now, I had a conversation with Will Lucas. Shout out to him. He and I go back quite a bit. He interviewed me about Build From Now, and the argument was, do you build your idea or do you learn your skills first? This actually ties into there. You actually want to start building your idea. You don't want to perfect it before you get it out there. But building your idea isn't just building whatever you want to get the press attention for, if we want to focus on the press. Building the idea also means building the community. Building the idea means creating that conversation before the press comes. So the idea literally isn't literally just you creating whatever you're creating. The idea is, I'm going to build this community about that. And the next book actually talks about that quite a bit. My last recommendation would be The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. And I've recommended this book a few times. You guys are familiar with my work, especially with The Ultimate Bites as Entrepreneur. I've quoted him a few times. I met him in the past. He seems like a cool person. So I appreciate his work. I'm happy to recommend his latest book, which came out probably about a year ago, but The Infinite Game. Excuse me. The Infinite Game is about why you should work on the long game. His stuff is focused on competitors, which actually makes sense when it comes to the press, because a lot of people that are going to be competing to get that space in the newspaper, that space on the website, to get someone to tweet out whatever they're doing, whatever that platform is. There's a lot of competition. What he's saying in The Infinite Game, which is based on a previous book called Finite and Infinite Games by James Carres, I believe is the last name, but forgive me if I screw up his last name. That book came out probably around the time I was born, back in the 70s. That's worth checking out. His book is almost like an update on it, or almost like an homage. And of course, making it more relevant with social media and other discussions, and bring in the pop culture and history as Simon Sinek does so well. What he's saying is that everyone's going to be around in this fishbowl forever. Ford is always going to be up against Chevy. IBM is always going to be up against EDS. Apple is always going to be up against Microsoft. There's certain things that are pretty much forever, especially in those cases where those things are way too powerful to disappear. Apple's not going to disappear tomorrow, as much as Amazon's not going to disappear tomorrow. They're way too powerful. Facebook isn't going to disappear tomorrow, right? Even MySpace didn't disappear, at least not for long. So if that's the case, and let's flip it to the press, if we're all competing for this press, and you can say competing in quotes, if we're all competing for this press, then I might get pressed today, you might get pressed tomorrow. The thing is that just because you didn't get on the front cover of the newspaper today, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen tomorrow. So that's one aspect of it, really simple. The other aspect, which is way more subtle, is playing the infinite game with your customers. Your customers, people you serve, should be the number one thing, right? If your main thing is to do this big event and it's going to get a whole bunch of press, and then you're not taking care of your customers, you're going to lose the infinite game. I have customers, I have people that I've coached, I have people that have been buying my books. At this point, it's becoming decades. So if I go and put out, try not to curse here, a shoddy book, and y'all are like, that book was garbage, how's my career going to look in 5 years? If I go and I partner with Costco, which I did with the original version of Build From Now back in July, or in January, you can check it out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BrownDamon. If I partner with Costco and I'm like, hey, I have this great book called Build From Now, and then the book ends up being garbage, and tens of thousands of Costco customers, which did come through the door and check out the book and realize it's garbage, then where will my career look in 5 years? If I get all this press and my book ends up being garbage, do you think I'm going to get pressed next time? So you got to understand the infinite game. You got to understand the infinite game. You got to go further than just now. Don't worry about getting on the front cover next week, because guess what? The day after that, someone else is going to be on the front cover. You got to look at the long game. And thank you for Allison. I appreciate the commentary, and I'm glad you're being inspired by the books. But having that type of long view will allow you to calm down on the press. The press is important. They will help throw a what they call lighter fluid. I cannot talk today. Lighter fluid onto the fire, but the fire has to already be burning, right? You got to get the infinite game on. Last recommendation from my thing as we wrap up would be check out my playlist on emotional intelligence, which just ties into it. Emotional intelligence will allow you to calm down. You calm down, you realize how you don't have to be urgent with the press. Build good stuff. I promise the press will come to you. All right, I think that's it for our time. Be sure and check out the deluxe version of Build From Now. You can pre-order it on all the platforms, if not all the platforms, very, very soon. As we speak, it's going to press. It's coming out July 28th. I remember it includes the original Build From Now, which came out 6 months ago, and the predecessor, Bring Your Worth. They're all together. And shout out to Stephen Pressfield for the wonderful blurb that's on the front cover. Anyway, much love to y'all. Remember that you can always bring your worth and that you can always build from now. Take care.